Samsung and LG have a tendency to, let's say, resemble each other. But how would you compare the LG G2 with the Samsung Galaxy Note 3, both of which are available now at all major carriers? I'm Andrew with mobileburn.com, here to answer that question right now. Now, before I go any further, I should note that I'm using the AT&T version of both devices. Depending on which carrier you get, there might be some minor differences between the software, and in the case of the Verizon G2, there'll be some major differences in the hardware. But with that said, let's take a comparison of the hardware right now. First off, you definitely see there's a big difference in size. These are both large devices, but the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 is definitely a little bit larger. It measures 5.95 by 3.12 by 0.32 inches. The LG G2, on the other hand, is 5.45 by 2.79 by 0.35. So it's a little bit thicker on the G2 because of the shape. Also, you have these rear buttons, but the Galaxy Note 3 is considerably larger in terms of height and width. Now, that half an inch in terms of difference of side actually goes a long way. So when it comes to just holding the device, the G2 has an advantage because the size is a little more manageable. Even though the texture that it has, which is kind of glossy, slimy, you see it attracts fingerprints like crazy. Even though that's not as good as the Galaxy Note 3, which has this fake leather kind of material. That's not the greatest thing out there, but it's definitely better than glossy plastic. I'd definitely say that in terms of holding the device, just because it's smaller, the G2 is a little bit better to manage. Now, in terms of the design flair or what have you, on the Galaxy Note 3, you have this faux chrome rim around the sides. And then on the back, you have the pleather like I mentioned before. And you have this big 5.7-inch display, a very big display. We'll get into that in a couple of minutes. Then you have the physical home buttons. Now, this is one thing that I really dislike about the way that Samsung does things because the button is unnecessary. Android has virtual buttons that you could program, but whatever the case may be, they've chosen not to do that. On the bottom, it also has back and menu buttons that you can access on the side. With the LG G2, on the other hand, it's all virtual, the way it was intended to be on Android. You have menu button here, home button, back, and you can actually edit this, so you can also have a notification button as a shortcut and to bring down the notification tab, which is kind of cool. And on the back, you get this very unique system of doing things. Now, at first, it's going to feel a little weird to have your volume controls as well as your power button in the back right here, but over time you see that your hand naturally rests comfortably here and it feels very nice to hold, and it comes in handy in certain instances. So I can have my volume go down, I can have it go up. If I'm in the camera app, I can take a picture by pressing the volume keys. So it's a really cool way of doing things that way, and it keeps everything along the sides very clean, very smooth. Aside from that, it has one more advantage, and that's the speaker. It has two speakers at the bottom below a micro USB port. The Galaxy Note 3 has one speaker, and it's not very good. Doesn't reach very high level volume, and it tends to get distorted a little bit, and it's kind of disappointing. But on the up and up side, it has this advanced USB port right here that allows you to charge your phone much faster and transfer data much faster. So in terms of hardware, there are pluses and minuses for both devices. In terms of texture, I definitely think the Galaxy Note 3 is better. In terms of manageability for a large device, I think that the G2, that's gonna happen a lot, just so you're aware. The G2 ends up being better in terms of portability and manageability and comfort when holding the device. Choosing the best screen is a little bit harder because these are both very good displays. With the Galaxy Note 3, you're going to get a 5.7-inch display Super AMOLED panel. On the LG G2, you get a 5.02-inch IPS panel. Now, the way that works out is with the IPS display on the G2, you're going to be able to reach higher levels of brightness. So it'll technically be brighter, but you can still get very high brightness on the Galaxy Note 3. So it comes down to a matter of preference. Because the Note 3 has a 5.7-inch display, you have to wonder if that half an inch is going to matter to you when you're watching video, when you're playing games or multitasking. But I mean, really, it's not that big of a difference. So it's gonna, if you had to nitpick, if you absolutely had to choose, I think that the G2 has a better display. But really, it shouldn't be a big determining factor because these are both going to be great displays that you're going to use every day. The G2 has multiple ways to multitask. Say that 10 times fast. Basically, if you hold down on the home button, just like on the Note 3, you'll have a view of all the apps that you have open. But there's a way to be more selective. So if I open this app and then swipe across with my 3 fingers, it disappears. The next one, swipe across. And then when I swipe back across, you see that I have these 2 apps open, so it gives me that option. Another thing that it'll let you do is have floating apps through QSlide. So I can have my calendar open and have my browser open in the background. But if I want, I can resize it to certain sizes. I can jump into the full mode of the camera and then jump back to the mini mode. But overall, it's not as effective, I should say, as you get with multi-window. When you have multi-window on the Note 3 and you hold down on the back button, you see this little option of apps that you can open 2 screens to 1. So I can have S Note open in the top, and the music app open in the bottom, and while I'm listening to a song, I can take notes or something like that. So it splits the screen, that big 5.7-inch screen, into 2 panels and allows you to do like fully operational apps at once. So this is a better way to multitask for me. And while I'm mentioning the S Note, I should bring up one of the main attractions of the Galaxy Note 3, which I haven't so far. The pen, the S Pen, to be more specific. This allows you to do a lot of things. Every time you pull it out, it gives you some options. Aside from just being a nice way to input, you can also search. It can search documents. It can search files on your folder, emails and everything, just to find something specific. It's a really cool way. But I'm going to do something to show you the pen specifically. This is Action Memo. So let's say I name someone, I meet someone. His name is Blake. We're going to work together, and I get the number 905 555 3111. Okay, Action Memo tries to recognize that, and then I say, all right, let's take an action. Link to an action, and it says, what do you want to do? I have all these options. I'm going to choose phone, and then I can complete with the phone. And now you see the number comes up. Or if I want, I could have added to it contacts. And now I can go back into the Action Memo that I have open. Or I can choose to save it for later. And I can do a lot of other things. So you can see, you can have notes at any time and do multiple things with them. It's just not storing notes. You can actually input them. Now you can create notes on the G2 as well. It has something called S Memo, which is pretty nifty, or Quick Memo, I should say. With Quick Memo, it basically overlays on the screen and allows you to annotate. So if you're in a phone call, you're in a calendar, you can draw on the screen. And I could have taken down Blake's information just as well. And when I save pretty much a picture or into a note, I can have the information. But the addition of a stylus makes the possibilities of note-taking a lot better on the Galaxy Note 3. So the software similarities extend to the music player, where you see themes repeating themselves in terms of design. They both have similar features, like you can cast to a nearby device like a TV or audio receiver. You can also bookmark songs as favorites on both, and both devices have an EQ setting. So in case you want to change the tune and the levels of different songs, you can do that. You can put it on presets, all those type of things. Now, one advantage that the Galaxy Note 3 has over the G2 is that it has a feature called Music Square, which basically allows you to create different playlists based on mood or feeling. It also has smart playlists that you can create for your most played songs, recently added songs. So overall, though they're very similar, I do think that the Note 3 has a better music app. And that's kind of a theme that plays out throughout when you compare these devices. A lot of the times the features are going to be nearly identical, but they just come out a little bit better on the Note 2. Camera is another instance where you see that these two devices are remarkably similar in terms of what they offer on the software level. On the G2, you see you have normal, you have shot and clear. So if somebody walks behind you in your photo, you can erase them. You have HDR photos, beauty shot for improving front-facing camera, stuff like that. On the Note 3, you have pretty much the same thing. You have several photos that you can take. You can do best photos if someone's looking away, or you just want to choose the best in a series. Beauty face, once again, enhances your portrait shots, or you can set it on auto mode so it'll automatically detect it. Both cameras have 13 megapixel cameras. Now, the G2 gets an edge in one regard, that it has optical image stabilization that really helps you cut down on blurriness. The Note 3 has stimulation, but it's not optical. It's a software level thing. So it does help, but it's not as effective on the Note as it is on the G2. So you would think that the G2 takes better photos, right? Not exactly. They both take very good photos, actually, in most conditions. But often when I was looking at it side by side compared to what each phone did, I found that the Galaxy Note 3 tended to do a little bit better. So if I had to choose between one of these two, I'd go with the Note 3, but don't get me wrong, both are very good cameras. You can follow the description below to see a look at each camera and see some of the photos side by side to notice the differences between the two. But again, I really think that you'll get more bang for your buck in terms of photos with the Note 3. On paper, the LG G2 would seem to be the sensible choice here. It has the arguably better screen, it lasts slightly longer despite having a lower capacity battery, and it's easier to handle. But things are never always what they seem when it comes to phones. Just because a phone is better on paper or spec sheet doesn't mean it's better in real life and everyday use. And that's kind of the feeling that you get when it comes to comparing these two phones. After using the G2 for a month, I can definitely say it's one of the better phones out there, but it still has its hangups. After using the Galaxy Note 3 for about 3 weeks, I can definitely say very similar things. It's not a perfect phone by any means, and there are definitely some things that you'd want to improve upon. But when it comes to comparing the overall experience and the software of what Samsung offers compares to what LG offers, I just think that the Galaxy Note 3 kind of edges it out. If you're someone who likes the S Pen, it's going to be pretty clear cut. If you're someone that takes notes a lot, if you're someone who draws and sketches, this would be something that you want to use. If that's not something that affects you, give the LG G2 a try because it is better in those ways that I mentioned, and that might be more than enough. When you consider that these have similar cameras, this has the same processor, it's very hard to separate these two. So it really comes down to your preferences to software. If the S Pen doesn't matter to you, the G2 makes a much stronger case than it does if the S Pen does matter, because that stylus does make a difference for a lot of people. When you compare one-to-one in terms of apps, I think that Samsung comes out ahead of LG, but at the same time, you might feel differently, and you can correct some of those things. You can replace the browser, you can replace the keyboard, because Android allows you to replace different apps. But at the end of the day, if I had to just choose one, and this is me personally, I'd go with the Galaxy Note 3 because I do think that the S Pen makes a big difference. Anyway, this is Andrew from mobileburn.com. I hope this video was helpful to you if you're trying to choose between these two devices. Be sure to click the link in below, and if you like this video, feel free to click like and subscribe. Until next time, thanks for watching.